Lord Owen, I mean, when companies go over the cliff like this, I mean, have the people running them got something wrong with them in a mental sense?
Probably not in a mental sense, and if you're going to say an illness, but quite a number of them have personalities which are bizarre sometimes, which are aggressive. Now, we get used in the financial world, and indeed in private industry generally, but it occurs right across the board. This is not a question of politicians or bankers. It occurs vice chancellors of universities, even journalists. The question which I'm interested in is not those people who've always had abnormal personalities. They exist. They're often charismatic, and they're often hard-driving and very successful. What seems to me to be emerging is of interest, because it's something you might be able to do something about, are people who come into the job and are thought to be, in inverted commas, normal, and in the job acquire changes in their personality which have profound consequences. Now, analyzing this and trying to do it, part of the report, which obviously I'm very impressed by, is on page 29, when it says this subject has got to have further research. And I think this is really essential. Now, the medical profession for years believed, decades, that personality was God-given. You inherited it, you put it together in your environment, in your childhood, and that was it. And you couldn't acquire it. And this was all the dispute, you may remember, about post-traumatic stress disorder. It went on for 20 years, and eventually the medical profession did, reluctantly but decisively, accept that this was an acquired condition. This is a big breakthrough. We've now got acquired personality disorders. So the question is, can it be for prestigious leaders? And the answer is yes. Now, the danger, of course, is that you build up an atmosphere and an attitude which is against risk-taking, against courageous leadership, against people with personality and charisma. A group of us 2 years ago created a research trust called the Daedalus Trust. And we used the word Daedalus because Daedalus, in Greek mythology, was the person who was an entrepreneur. He invented the wings that allowed he and his son Icarus to fly over Crete. But he had enough wisdom to say to his son, beware of flying too close to the sun because the wax will melt, or too close to the waves because the wings will be affected. Now, this is the crucial thing. If we approach this research in an atmosphere of saying, charisma, that type of leadership is out, we won't carry anybody with us, and I think rightly so. Although I think people are stressing much too much in modern life, and particularly journalists, the advantage of the single leader, the decisive personality. There's quite a lot of good research from management in industry and commerce that a less charismatic leader, but a thorough and a careful and a well-judged leader gets better results even than their shareholders think. So, you know, we've got to be careful of it. So I personally think that we need more research. It's got to be done carefully. And all I can say is that the Daedalus Trust, which I'm the chairman of, is now asked its research committee to consider whether or not we should use our funds and raise others to, if you like, piggyback on Professors, your work, and focus on that aspect of personality in the key areas where you've looked. And I've just come back from the States, and I've been trying to get a similar study in the United States, because it's exactly the same there. We all know that there are a lot of these companies, AIG, Bear Stearns, Lehman's, many others, there are key personality problems which need to be looked at, and we need to study it right across the board. So all I'm saying is be a little bit more open-minded about this. At the moment, the trouble about calling it medical disease is there's a thing called narcissistic personality disorder. It exists mainly in the States as a classification. It's not really accepted in Europe. But you start using words like that, narcissistic, then everybody will turn off. And that's why I call this hubris syndrome. And I exclude from this anyone who's known to have depression. Because how can you tell when you are not usually on a one-on-one doctor-patient relationship whether they have what we used to call manic depression or now bipolar disorder? How do you know all these things? So I'm stressing that I'm interested in people who we think we've chosen for jobs, we have great aspirations for them. Initially, as the chief executive, they're successful, and then they go bad on the job.